Folks, I learned something early on from my family and my mom and dad. They said, Joey, nobody is better than you, but everyone is your equal. Everyone is your equal. And folks, I learned something early on from my family and my mom and dad. They said, Joey, nobody is better than you, but everyone is your equal. Everyone is your equal.
This is the funniest thing that I have seen today. It's hilarious to me. Joe Biden giving a speech, looking in the wrong camera, just going after it. No one is better than you. No one is better than you. Just right, Joe Biden. Nobody is better than you, indeed. That should never happen. That should never happen. Joey, no one is better than you. No, that should never happen. This should never happen. This should never take place.
Folks, I learned something early on from my family and my mom and dad. They said, Joey, nobody is better than you.
That's sad. That's sad. In the same way that I said that when Joe Biden didn't know where he was and he mentioned the wrong place, that he should fire the guy that essentially allowed him to do that. This guy, whoever allowed Joe Biden to do that, should lose their job. I'm just trying to help you out, Joe. Don't keep people on staff when you are doing stuff like that. The Democratic Party has taken a certain tint in this election. This is not like other elections. If you've noticed, these guys are more kumbaya. They're more chill towards each other in the way that they're going about their politics. Now, I predicted that kumbaya was going to edge off the closer that they got to the end of the race, meaning the more it became an issue of trying to win the race, the more they were going to get a little bit more aggressive in trying to push their case and push their point. But up to this point, the kumbaya, the chill feeling in the race, have for the most part stayed intact. Question: will the Republicans coddle you in this way? Meaning the DNC may have put some kind of rule set in place or all of these guys agreed to not go after each other, but will the Republican Party coddle you? Will the Republican Party be kumbaya when you are running in that race? Second question: if they won't be kumbaya, what will they attack you with and what will they say? And three, what will be the perspective of the American public? Meaning, how will your candidate take what they dish out to your candidate? And do you really want to find out after the primary? Think about what I'm asking you. Think about what I'm asking you. Do you want this to take place after the primary?
Everyone is your equal. Everyone is your equal. And folks,
I feel slightly bad laughing at that video. And I think part of the reason I feel slightly bad because it feels like a sundowning man should not be in this race. He's losing his mind. Do you want that to happen after the primary? Do you want your candidate answering questions like this after the primary?
Income bracket that you used in five.
Here it's 100%. It doesn't raise taxes on anybody but billionaires. And you know what? The billionaires can afford it, and I don't call.
That's not true. That's not true. She has all sorts of taxes, and some of which are not on billionaires. I guess I'm saying this. If your candidate has a glass jaw, don't you want to find that out in the primary? And do you want to wait until after the primary to find out that there are certain attacks that you weren't necessarily prepared for because you guys were being kumbaya in the primaries? I'm not asking for people to be hateful. I'm not asking for people to overtly lie. I'm not asking for any of that stuff. What I'm making a basic point is the primaries are for the time frame in which that stuff is figured out. We have an adversarial process, whether I like it or not. I would prefer a process where people work together in order to come to better ends. But that is not the process to which we have. And I would argue that primaries should make the person stronger by having them withstand those attacks early on. So later on, A, the public is inoculated to those attacks, meaning the public is already, for the most part, internalized whatever came up in the primary. But B, you find out what attacks can't be sustained. And you don't want to have those attacks that can't be sustained taken in the general. Especially if you're looking at this from party politics and your point and your goal is to get the strongest candidate in the primary. This article, oddly enough, in the Washington Post, Sanders looks more resilient than Warren, asks the very basic question. Do we have peak Warren? Warren gets white people, yes, and she gets the educated class, yes. But thing is, the Trump supporters, the people who are voting, and that the Democratic Party are trying to get with this, she can't get those people. Trump can. Biden can. Sanders can. Warren seemed to have difficulty with that. She asked the question, does Warren have a glass jaw? And have we seen peak Warren? And how would you know that unless you actually have a real primary? I want to talk about this. I'll be succinct. But I am not asking for people to be hateful. Don't misunderstand me. I'm asking for people to have a real primary and separate the wheat from the chaff and come up with a real determination, significantly so, of whether or not the candidates who excel through that primary can withstand the blows that will be coming their way the moment that they get out of the primary. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, subscribe. You can always support PayPal patron. I've been thinking about this for the last couple of days, and I think I'm right on this, but people may have different points of view. Recent Monmouth poll has just come out. Joe Biden, 23%, Elizabeth Warren, 23%, Sanders, 20%, Sanders raising 5 points. Warren down 3 points. I'm sorry, down 5. Biden down 2. Now, when the Monmouth poll came out last time and Sanders was at 15%, everybody proclaimed him dead on arrival. Dead man walking corpse. And yet, after that heart attack, he seems to be outright entirely reinvigorated. And he has been on fire. I swear to God. And it's not just looking at the polling. It's something that you feel. And I understand the feel thing is stuff coming out there that I'm internalizing. So fair enough. But I don't think that's entirely in my head. Look at this. NBC, Wall Street Journal, Biden down 4. Monmouth, Biden down 2. Fox, Biden down 1. NBC, Warren down 2. Monmouth, Warren down 5. Fox, Warren down 1. NBC, Sanders up 5. Monmouth, Sanders up 5. Fox, Sanders up 2. Now, to be fair, we don't have nationwide polling, meaning elections. People go and win those things throughout the states. However, the nation does give you some context to what is taking place in the states, especially within this, because Sanders is either in the lead or within spitting distance of the lead in the various states, with the exception of South Carolina. I want to point something else out. Even though we're having this kumbaya primary, look at this. This is Warren. Michigan. Let me say it this way. She's losing to Trump in these primary states. Let's just say it that way. She's losing with likely voters in all of these primary states. New York Times, Siena College poll. This is a real poll. These are real polls. The people who are going to be voting in the general are going to be more than just Democrats. The perspective of the world that they take, the things that bother them, the things that plague them, will be more than the things that just plague Democrats. independents, conservatives, and yes, potentially an expanded voting bloc into the 50% of the public that don't vote. Things that plague them will be more than things that just plague Democrats. I say that because I'm trying to make this very basic point that the primary process is literally to separate the wheat from the chaff. Think of the attacks that's been taking place on Medicare for All. Did the attacks on Medicare for All weaken or strengthen Medicare for All? It strengthened it. Warren and Sanders had to sharpen their arguments in order to deal with the flack that they were getting from the opposition in this case. Warren has made a mistake because Warren has put out this plan that is going to be picked apart, and she is going to be picked apart from the standpoint of honesty. Biden and the other candidates are going to be hitting her on that. But that's because she exposed herself in that sense. Sanders will not. Sanders will not. Sanders will only talk policy. This is not a bad thing. Now, some in the media may think this is a bad thing, but this is the sharpening of the primary. I would like to discourage them from attacking Democrats for doing this. This is not because I want to see Warren just picked and attacked. It's because I'm making the point that she will be picked at and attacked on this particular healthcare plan, and she will be called dishonest by the Republican Party in all sorts of ways with $1 billion backing it. You better find out whether she can take it now, because you don't want to get out into the primary and have her flounder. Same thing with Joe Biden. If Joe Biden is going to be hit with all sorts of, name calling when Castro gently prodded that Joe Biden might not have been all that uptight upstairs, everybody freaked out. And I thought, why are you freaking out? Do you honestly believe that Trump will do less? Even the socialist stuff. They will call Sanders a socialist in all sorts of ways and 1,000 times a day. I saw it here in Virginia in this election, called the guy a radical socialist on television. They will do that. I guess the point I'm making to you is think back to the other primaries, Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. Did it weaken him or did it strengthen him? The problem here is the Democratic Party is working off of bad analysis. They're thinking that the Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton thing somehow hurt Hillary Clinton. I will put it to you this way. To think that hurt Hillary Clinton is that her name was Hillary Clinton and that she had a track record that people did not like, and it came across as if she was supposed to be gifted with this election as opposed to winning it. Joe Biden is an old-time politician, and he will not be adhering to these rules of not hitting his opponent. This is the reason why Biden seems to be one of the main people, at the very least at the top, that has initiated these attacks on Warren, separating him and Sanders, almost like pulling her away from the herd in order to go after her. Don't boo-hoo him for that. I'm talking about Democrats. Don't boo-hoo him for that. You may not like Biden. You may think Biden is a horrible person to be head of the party. But understand, what is more important? Losing to Trump or winning the election? And if winning the election is what is important, then the primary process need to play out in the way that the primary process is going to play out in order to determine whether or not the candidates in this primary process has a glass jaw, or whether or not those candidates can be strengthened in the process while going into the general. I understand, don't misunderstand me, why they don't want to do this. The last thing you want to have is a process where you hit your opponent with something that Trump turns around and uses also to hit your opponent. The thing is, and the hope is, that being hit with this in the primary inoculates the opponents before going into the general election. Again, because the last thing you want to do is go into the general and find that your candidate has a glass jaw. You don't want to see polling like this on a candidate that is out of the primary. That will be a disaster. Another one, a disaster. Clearly, I back Sanders in this. And I have no doubts that they are going to call him every name in the book with billions of dollars backing it. Whatever they're going to hit Sanders with, they will hit Sanders with. you have an entire coalition of Democrats that have come together almost as a wonder team to try to find some way to stop Sanders. Believe it or not, I might have been wrong about Sanders. So my thing was, he has to do something about Warren, because if he doesn't do something about Warren, she's going to ape his position as a cuddler of Sanders. Warren has injured herself in this process because she has herself created a deviation between her and Sanders, which literally was her strongest political strategy. And she's done it in a way that she is going to have to somehow defend on that debate stage. Klobuchar, the one who says she's nasty to her people at work, she will be nasty to Warren on stage in a polite way. Biden will be Joe Biden, affable as ever, but hitting her on this notion of honesty. And he will use Sanders as a club to do so. He said they're raising taxes. How can you do this without raising taxes? These numbers are dodgy. These numbers don't make sense. You got to be honest with the American public. Joe Biden would do this. He's an old-style politician. Joe Biden has even sent out pamphlets lying about the polling involving Warren and Sanders. He is an old-style politician. He will do this. Sanders will never do this. We take Sanders not doing this as being a negative. But is it? Think about it for the moment. When you look at who's more trusted on all these issues, it comes out of Sanders. When you look at favorability and these type of things, it comes across in many respects as Sanders. He comes across as being above politics in an odd, weird way. And I think part of that is because he tends to be honest when he tells you stuff. Yes, I'm going to raise the middle class taxes. Oh! Fucking said he's going to raise. Well, I mean, at least he's being honest with me. He comes across as honest. I think part of that is his weapon. I know that sounds weird, honesty is a weapon, but to some degree he comes across as earnest when he confronts these issues and when he's talking to the American public about these issues in regards to this is what we need to spend, this is what we need to do, this is what I want to do, I am a true believer, they call me a radical, so you know I'm a true believer, etc., etc., etc. It works for him. Joe Biden has taken a particular lane. People just know Joe Biden, so he gets off on that particular point. Warren, her support is somewhat fudgy on this. Look, I guess my point is this. Allow the primary process to take itself out. If your candidate has a glass jaw, that is something that you want to find in the primary. And the way these guys are going to start getting more intense and how they go at each other, the media, the DNC, the other Democrats should not boo-hoo that process. That is a process that is what it is in the competitive nature to which we've organized our politics. And it is one that should strengthen a candidate, not weaken them. I'll end it here. Like, share, subscribe. Thanks all.